just to set the scene, just in the past, I don't know, couple of weeks, Gene came to me. He's like, "Do you know what quiet quitting is?" And this is something that has been termed as, where people are pushing back, employees are pushing back, and they're not actually quitting their job, but they're only doing what's actually on their job description. So they're not going above and beyond. It's really a pushback against the hustle culture. Excuse me, I can't say that word. And really just doing what is required of them to keep their job and nothing above and beyond, because they're burned out. They're burned out. That's just all there is to it.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about a new subject that maybe you have heard nothing about: quiet quitting. And specifically, we're going to talk about how to prevent quiet quitting as a leader of a fast growth company. We're going to share with you just a little bit of data behind this. We're actually going to tell you what this really means, quiet quitting, and how dangerous it is, because people are disengaging and they are not actually telling you that they're disengaging. They're actually just going to suck up some of the money that you have available for them. They're going to do the bare minimum, and we're going to unpack exactly what that is. But inside here, we're going to give you a solution to quiet quitting, and hopefully you'll understand and how to apply that if you listen to the full episode. Now, here's a special episode with my wife, Amanda Hammett, and I talk about how to prevent quiet quitting. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, how are you?
I am fantastic.
Good.
Well,
glad to see you.
Anybody who doesn't know, Amanda is my wife. She is also the CEO of Core Elevation, our legal entity company. She is a driving force in many ways. She's the love of my life, and we're gonna have a special episode today. Do you want to add anything to that, Amanda?
No, I think I think that wraps it up. I mean, all those like lovely things, and we're going to be talking about quiet quitting. So it's kind of a dichotomy there.
Yep, the juxtaposition is alive and well. Today, we're going to focus on a topic I have not been familiar with until recently, and I've caught this a lot more. But we're going to talk about how leaders can prevent quiet quitting. I'm going to let you go ahead and start in this. I'll add a little bit of color around quiet quitting for those that maybe don't know what this is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just to set the scene, just in the past, I don't know, couple of weeks, Gene came to me. He's like, "Do you know what quiet quitting is?" And this is something that has been termed as, where people are pushing back, employees are pushing back, and they're not actually quitting their job, but they're only doing what's actually on their job description. So they're not going above and beyond. It's really a pushback against the hustle culture. Excuse me, I can't say that word. And really just doing what is required of them to keep their job and nothing above and beyond, because they're burned out. They're burned out. That's just all there is to it.
I think it's absolutely right, but I want to add something to it. I looked at some research around this. This actually came up in July 2022. So this is pretty fresh. This is only August, so I'm not too far behind of the times. And if you've missed it, you're not too far behind either. But quiet quitting is really dangerous. Here's why. It's probably taking someone that's been pretty engaged with their work or highly engaged, and now they're no longer engaged. They're putting in the absolute minimum to get it done, is the way it's framed, and they're doing this instead of quitting. So it would be better if they would just come to you and say, "You know what, it's not working out here for me for whatever reason, I'm going to quit." But they're actually just, either if they're virtual or hybrid or something to the effect where they're working from home, they're just taking that time to go, "I'm going to do the absolute minimum. I'm really smart. I'm good at my job. I might be able to get it done in 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day or less in some cases."
So here's the thing. I know that this started coming out only in the past couple of months in the media. This is not a new phenomenon. This has been happening as long as we've had knowledge workers. It's just become easier now that, a lot of workers are still virtual or remote, hybrid, whatever you want to call it. It's just become a little bit easier to kind of cover your tracks. This has been happening forever. One of my very first jobs, I remember I had a cubicle right across from another man, and he was proud of the fact, he was like, I do the bare minimum. I do what is on my job description and not a thing more. And he would openly just sit at his desk, just twiddling his thumbs, literally twiddling his thumbs. And nobody said a word to him. And he worked there for like 5 or 6 years.
Well, we have these people that are amongst us, and the odds are pretty serious that you have someone like this if you have 10 or more employees, because there is probably 10, 20%. We're looking for some data. I haven't really found this because it's sort of new for most of us, this quiet quitting, but we want to make sure that we give you some tools to help you. So this whole episode was to talk about how leaders can prevent quiet quitting. And we're going to dive into sort of some of the problems that are going on before we get into solutions. So I know we talked about this before as we were planning this out. Amanda, where do you want to kick off with some of the problems that you see arising from this?
So some of the problems, or some of the
why people are pulling away? Why are they quiet quitting?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few main reasons why people will do the quiet quitting. One thing is just they're not engaged. So whether that is that they do not feel engaged with your values or the mission of the company, that may be something. Or it could also be that they don't feel engaged or supported by their direct leader. That happens all the time.
So Amanda, you were just talking about how it's lack of engagement. And I absolutely agree that what the relationship that people have with their direct managers and leaders actually lead into it. I frame it a little bit like it's a lack of appreciation and a feeling of value from that structure that's going on inside of management. When you think about that, you're working with a lot of frontline leaders through our leadership development program. Are you hearing that they feel unappreciated?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that not only are the frontline leaders feeling unappreciated, but that trickles down. And so when a leader feels unappreciated by the people above them, it makes sense that it goes on to their team. So that is something that we see across the board. But here's the thing. When the frontline leader feels unappreciated, undervalued, and basically is no longer engaged, that creates a perfect storm for everybody on the team to see what's going on and either quit or quiet quit.
A few minutes ago, I mentioned appreciation. I think Amanda mentioned appreciation. Here's one of the things that you can do. It's absolutely free. It costs you nothing. Is look around the organization every day and thank one person, 2 people, 3 people for what they're doing. Be very specific in what you're noticing, whether it be their hard work, that they stayed late, the result they've got on something. You should be encouraging them through this recognition because it will help them feel a sense of appreciation for what they're doing. You want to make sure that this recognition is done consistently, and it's absolutely free. And it's an easy leadership tip that you can use yourself and even encourage your team members to do as well. Back to the interview. And that's the reason why we're talking about these things, because you want to make sure you're avoiding these if you can. Another problem that I'm seeing, and this may not be the biggest problem, but it's just something we got to put out there, is meaningful work. That if people feel like the work that they're doing doesn't align with where they're going in life, and they don't feel like the company has a real mission that they can get attached to, I can see them pulling away from that work. They're looking for more than just a paycheck and a job. And so if they don't have meaningful work, it can really be something that over time they just decide, you know what, I'm just going to do the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're going to take that opportunity to, all that energy that they've saved up through, just doing the bare minimum at work, and they're going to turn that into their personal life. And what can they do to find that meaning there instead of at work?
So we've gone through this concept of lack of appreciation and then lack of meaning at work. A third one that I was thinking about this morning when I was preparing for this is just lack of growth. That they feel like they're not getting growth in their current job. The skills are not developing, their level of experience. Maybe they don't have a career path that's very clear. They are going to pull away. And we have these conversations all the time about how often are you talking about career path when you're talking with, coaching a lot of our leaders here, frontline leaders and middle managements. Do they want a career path?
Absolutely. They want a career path. Everybody wants to know that there is room to grow. And, we see it time and time again. I've gone as high as I can go in this company. If I want to step up, I've got to go somewhere else to do that. And so we see that, we hear that all the time. But not only that, the people on the front line, the people that these frontline leaders are leading, they feel the same way. If they don't feel like they're growing, if they don't feel like they're building those skills, particularly in those early in career timeframes, those first 5 to 7 years are pivotal. That's when they're learning a lot of skills. That's where they're learning a lot of, valuable skills that will help them out throughout their career. But if we're not building it, we're just pushing to do, hey, you just need to do this. You don't worry about your career path. We'll take care of you, which has been the mantra for generations. That's no longer something that younger employees are willing to tolerate and wait around for.
I know you hear this too, because there's a lot of frustration with the younger generations in the workforce. A lot of the older leaders, Gen X, like me, and above, will quickly throw them under the bus, saying that they're apathetic, that they're lazy, that they don't want to work, they're entitled. When the reality is, when you give them an opportunity to really provide meaningful work, that they're growing, that they feel appreciated, they can be some of the best workers out there because they are young and hungry. I worked a lot harder when I was 22 to 29 years old than I do now. And I'm not embarrassed to say that because I've risen to a certain level, but I know you are the generational expert. You spent a decade working with companies and a lot of Fortune 500 companies specifically on helping them understand those differences in the generations. What would you add to this, Amanda?
Well, I think this idea of quiet quitting and in the media, there's a lot of blame being placed on these Gen Zs, they're just the worst. Here's the thing. The youngest generation is always considered the worst. Millennials had that title before, Gen X had that title before that, and boomers, they were once upon a time the worst. So it just happened to manifest its way into this particular way. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to go back to my earlier point, quiet quitting is not new. There is now words for it we've defined it with words, but it is not a new concept. So we can't go around and continue to blame the, early in career employees. But there does need to be some accountability, some ownership taken at the leadership level of companies. The reason why your employees, your younger employees, or any generational employees are disengaging from you or quiet quitting from you, that has to do with you. What leadership structures have you put into place? What investments have you made into your frontline leaders so that they can build up a team and encourage a team and, really have a cohesive unit moving forward, accomplishing goals or, raising levels of productivity or just keeping employees engaged? That is on company leadership.
I don't disagree. And a little foreshadowing as we get to the solution of this. One more reason why people are quitting or quiet quitting, I think, is toxic employees. So this could be a peer level employee. It could be someone across teams. It could be on their team. But if there's someone that is judging other people, they're really putting a lot of pressure on people. Maybe they're lying. Maybe there's some other dishonesty and things that are going on. What I find is a lot of leaders are tolerating that way too long. Maybe they're a high performer and they're tolerating that high performing salesperson or high performing project manager, even though they are driving others away. And again, I'll say it again, quiet quitting is more dangerous than people just telling you that they quit because they're sitting around doing less than they could and less than they, a lot less. And so they're just a drain on the company if you don't get to the bottom of it. I know you've had a lot of conversations with our coaching clients around how do I deal with someone who is sort of toxic? What are the key insights behind that toxic employee?
So I think one of the key insights into toxic employees is, one, companies need to recognize they're in your ranks. They are in your ranks, whether you realize it or not, or want to address it or not. One of the things that I see over and over again is that companies don't want to address it. They just want to push it under the rug, and they just want to hope that it gets better. But here's the thing. If you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't have difficult conversations that need to be had, other people see that. Other employees see that. They see that you are turning a blind eye. So then they begin to think, oh, well, if they're turning a blind eye to what the toxic employee is doing, what can they turn a blind eye to what I'm doing? And hence you have the quiet quitting. So this is problematic. I would encourage leaders to have those difficult conversations. Yes, they are awkward. Yes, nobody wants to feel like, nobody wants to rock the boat, especially in this economic situation that we're all in, where it's hard to hire. But you need to have these difficult conversations, because you're losing employees, both voluntary turnover and through quiet quitting, by not addressing these toxic employees. And that's causing a bigger damage, more damage than anything the toxic employees doing themselves.
Now, Amanda just mentioned difficult conversations, and she's absolutely right. What I find is, no matter what, if you find someone who is quiet quitting, or you find someone else who needs to have a difficult conversation, then you likely need some support behind that. The reason I know that is because there's a reason why you haven't had the conversation yet. You're avoiding it for some reason, and we want to give you the tools to stop avoiding it. So if you want our free framework into difficult conversations, just go to genehammett.com/conversations. It will give you a framework and a little bit of a training around exactly what you can do to have a conversation with someone about their behavior, about their lack of standards, about their inconsistency, about repeated patterns that are coming up. This framework is inside of our best leadership development program, and we're going to give it to you absolutely for free. Just go to genehammett.com/conversations. Let's go back to the interview, get a little bit more detail. Well, this takes us right into the solution behind this. So we've been looking at, employees that are quiet quitting, lack of meaning at work, lack of appreciation, lack of growth, dealing and tolerating toxic employees that just causes their workplace to be an unenjoyable place to work, so that they are disengaging from their work. It comes down to one thing. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Amanda, what's that one thing?
It's investing in your leaders across the board, giving them the tools and the frameworks available to be able to have those difficult conversations, the ability to coach up their employees, the ability to have these career pathing conversations that need to be had at all levels, not just your early in career, at all levels. Because you don't want somebody sitting there thinking, I've got 20 years of experience, I have nowhere to go in this company, and their leaders too afraid to have a conversation. So what do? They leave and they take that, industry knowledge, that company knowledge with them. And then what kind of mess are you in?
This invest in your leaders, it shouldn't be a new subject to you. This shouldn't be something that you guys are considering that you've never heard of before. It's not innovative to invest in your people, because if you are not willing to invest in those top level managers and leaders that were high performers at one time, the reason why they got a promotion is because they were pretty darn good at their job for some reason, but you're not giving them the tools to be more successful at this next level. And so if that's the case, they're not having those difficult conversations. Like Amanda said, they're not coaching people up. Like, I am just outraged at how many people think that they understand what coaching is in a business world when we talk to them on the phone. Amanda has more of these conversations, and our other leadership coaches are having one-on-one conversations with these people who say, I understand what coaching is, but yet when they get down to it, they absolutely have zero sense.
Yeah.
What would you add to that, Amanda?
I agree wholeheartedly with that. This is not rocket science. This is not something that anybody has not heard before. But I do want to caution people that there is a lot of leadership information, I'll say, out there. But I Googled a list of the top 10, leadership programs recently. It was all like project management and, different university programs, things like that. And I'm sure that those are incredibly valuable, but that is about workflow. That is about managing workflow. I'm talking about leading people, and there is a very distinctive difference in the two. And we need to quit confusing them. So first things first, we need to make that distinction. And secondly, we need to really go after and help our leaders. They're struggling, they're burning out, and it's only going to get worse from there if we don't address the problem.
Amanda said it well. I will recap: invest in your leaders. period. If you are concerned about quiet quitting and how you can prevent it, you want to make sure that you are having the conversations with your direct reports and that they're having the conversations that they need to determine meaning and appreciation and growth. And is there a toxic person on the team? Because many people, when you ask them directly, they will go, I don't think so. And my question and challenge to you is, don't just say, I don't think so. Go out there and have those conversations. And when you come back and you realize we need to support them more, we're happy to help you. One of the things that we do here is develop frontline leaders, middle management leaders to have these skills. And we're not sharing this with you because it's a sales pitch. We're sharing it with you because it actually does help and it matters more than you know. And it's actually the one thing that you can do that's a lot easier than anything else around this whole quiet quitting thing is to have better leadership across the board. This means you, this means your executive team, this means every frontline leader that has someone on their team. And then you also teach your high performing employees what good leadership looks like, how to react under leadership. And that's all of the things that we've been working with under our leadership development program, Leadership On-Ramp. So wrapping up today, Amanda, any final words?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
This has been all about how to prevent quiet quitting. My hope is it's been helpful for you to have this insight. You know what it is, you know how to observe some of the things that are going on inside the conversation, and now you know how to solve it. So as always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.